Welcome to the Success in Africa podcast with Dr. Modupe, your weekly dose of leadership vitamins to make you successful in Africa.
Welcome back to the Success in Africa Leadership Podcast. My name is Dr. Modupe Taylor Pierce. This is the third of three segments that we're having with Caren Wakoli, the founder of Emerging Leaders Foundation. In this podcast, we journey with successful leaders and really ask them about how they got there. And if you've missed the first two, I encourage you to go back and listen to those because there's some absolute gold there. We're doing this so that you can be successful. We don't just want a few Africans to be successful. We want all Africans to be successful. And that's how we achieve our vision of an Africa that's a high-income continent by 2040. But without further ado, let's get back to Caren Wakoli. Caren, welcome back. And I have to ask you this. When we started this interview, you talked about being poor and the lack of dignity that it creates. You've also talked about the fact that the quality of leadership determines the quality of life. What is your vision for Africa? What's your dream? What is it that scares you so much in your dream that maybe even wakes you up at night? Tell us a bit about that.
Thank you, Dr. Modupe. So you just mentioned something that I'd like to rephrase. You said, I talked about being poor. No, I talked about growing up poor, not being poor.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah. There's a difference. So thank you so much for acknowledging that. So would you please just go back to the question you asked me about my dreams, my vision, and what scares me?
Yes. You've spoken about the fact that it's important to dream. And you've accomplished so much. Emerging Leaders Foundation is certainly one of the most successful social enterprises in Africa. And yet I get the feeling that you're dreaming even bigger. Can you let us into some of those dreams?
Wow, absolutely, yes. And you know what, Dr. Modupe, I feel like our visions about Africa are actually in alignment. You want an Africa where every person is successful. And for me, success is actually dignity. So I'm looking forward to an Africa in which every person will be living in dignity. Men, children, women, young people, everybody. And I feel like it is possible. It is possible. And especially when we just have a critical mass of men and women who get into leadership roles and understand that leadership is about service, and they get there, fold their sleeves and get to work to make sure they get to transform the lives of Africans. Our story will be different. The narrative about Africa will be different. People will be rushing to Africa, not to steal resources and all that, like what has happened in the past, but they'll be rushing to Africa to learn from us, to work with us, to partner with us, and not exploit the continent and her people. So that is what the success I want to see about Africa. One of the dreams I have and we have at Emerging Leaders Foundation is we would love to set up a center of excellence for youth leadership development in Africa. A center that will be fully fledged, self-sustaining, sustainable in every way. One of the challenges, as I have interacted with many young Africans, having been a young person myself, is that I have noticed that what young people lack is not really even money, and what they want is not money. They want opportunities to be nurtured, grow, to exploit their potential, to create. They're serious creatives. They're so productive, well-educated, exposed for the majority of them. And so what they need are just opportunities and spaces where they can peer mentor each other, they can learn, they can be supported to be great and to discover that greatness within. And so having this center, I think, would be something so powerful where the people in the political space can come in, people in the private sector, people using AI, people trying to set up institutions and entities, whether for profits, non-profits, people who just want to come and play with each other, dance, listen to music, do poetry, can just come and feel safe and feel seen. Those who maybe have unfortunately have had a chance to get into drugs or into addictions and are looking for a safe space where they can be accepted, embraced, loved upon, and supported to be rehabilitated. There's a rehabilitation center right there for them to be seen and to be heard, and for them to know that they still matter, that the past mistakes don't define who we are and how we end up in life. So this is definitely one big dream that I'd love to see to life.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for the continent, I would also really, really like to see generational transfer of power. Unfortunately, I don't know how it is in your country, Dr. Modupe. In many of the countries, I know of people who took power when they were in their 20s. And those people, you won't believe it, they are still in power right now, in their 70s, 80s, and 90s, clinging on. And so what happens to the younger people? Because essentially speaking, we're supposed to rise up together. Like even for me, it's important that then I'm nurturing a crop of leaders to take over from me as I transition and they take up the leadership of the organization and get to serve the needs of the day. But then you have a 90-year-old, 80-year-old, 70-year-old leading a continent or a country that has the median age of its population being 19, 18, or 20, surely. See that disconnect? So it is important that there's intergenerational engagement, mentorship, and then that transfer of power. That's really, really important.
Interesting.
The element about trust.
We could do better.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I feel like
And we-
our level of consciousness as Africans need to really go up so that we demand better because we know better. We demand better from our leaders and we do better because we're better.
I love what you've said, and it totally resonates with, the idea of a center of excellence and leadership. But I want to challenge you with something that a few non-Africans, non-Black Africans have said. Richard Nixon, F.W. Botha, Ian Smith are all on record saying, and I paraphrase, Africans cannot rule themselves. They can't lead themselves. They cannot manage themselves. They're good at sports. They are artistic. They can draw, they can sing, but they cannot lead themselves. When I share that, what is your reaction?
I am in shock. I'm dumbfounded. I don't even have the words. But that is so far from what is true. And I am aware that the impact of colonialism on the African mind and mindset has been challenging. But we are a generation that really needs to walk away from that and provide leadership and prove that Africans are leading themselves, Africans are leading innovations. A great example is right here, Dr. Modupe. You're leading your institution, you've been recognized globally. Are you not African? Okay, maybe you're not. Dr. Modupe, are you African?
I am, and thank you for challenging me. But let me also present some of the evidence that they give. They give evidence of the fact that the majority of African nations are not doing well. That while there are minority situations in which a few people are doing well, but the average isn't doing well. So what do we need to do in order to gives in order to have sufficient evidence that yes, Africans can lead themselves?
Actually, sufficient evidence that Africans are leading themselves and also leading the world, because we have Africans leading serious innovations elsewhere in the world, not necessarily in Africa. They are doing amazing stuff. And yes, I am aware that there've been a number of coups in Africa. There's a number of countries that are in conflict right now, in wars and all that. But I'm also well aware that some of those wars and conflicts, look at the Congo, are informed and are happening not the source is not here in Africa. The source is elsewhere because people are looking for resources in the Congo. So I think when we look at such challenges affecting the continent, let's not just have tunnel mindset that, oh, it is this way. And no, look at the bigger picture and get to understand, okay, what are the interests? What is happening? Who is in power? Who has been assassinated? Who informed this and that? But also, I think in terms of a challenge to ourselves, we also need leaders who are passionate about Africa, leaders who genuinely care about Africa, Pan-Africanists who want to see the rise of Africa, because we do not lack resources. We don't lack human resource and human capacity. We have all that. One of the biggest challenges and what we are working to resolve and to change is to nurture a generation of leaders that are values-driven, leaders that they know that leadership is about service, that they need to transform the lives of people they get to lead, that they can say no to foreign interests and say yes to public interests and protect their nations and their nationalities. Look at the level of public debts being accumulated by different African states, and a lot of that money is going into the so-called leaders' pockets, not even going to public coffers to take care of infrastructure, road network, healthcare, education, schools, food security. No, it's going to people's pockets. So I think it is high time that as Africans, we chose to be patriotic, we chose to love ourselves and actually change the notion and shift the mindset. And as a followership, we also need to raise our level of consciousness, because once we know better, we will demand better and not just demand for bread and butter to give somebody a vote. No, find out, who are you? What is your track record? What policies do you want to pass? How do you want to transform our country and our community? Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Yeah.
Now, I understand you're working on a book, which I suspect touches on your passion. Could you tell us a bit about what we can expect from this book?
Oh, wow. What a question. After talking to me and asking me about Africa and can Africa lead itself? So essentially speaking, the book draws from my leadership journey, the lessons I pick along the way, and some of the practices that I embody, and the change I have seen and the journey of becoming that I am on. So essentially speaking, that's what the book is on. And of course, challenging the younger generation of African leaders to rise to the occasion and keep being seen, keep being heard, and never really give up.
Amazing. It's been so great having you. But before I end this interview, Caren, I want to ask you, there are undoubtedly millions of young Africans out there who will be listening to this and saying, I'd like to be her someday. What would you say to any of those people? What would be your guiding, parting thoughts to any such young African who may have a similar background to yours and aspires to achieve what you have achieved?
Wow. That's a really, really deep question. Thank you so much for that. I would tell them, do not strive to be Caren. You can never be Caren. I can never be you. I can never be a Dr. Modupe. But you can strive to be the best version of you that you can be. And you might ask, okay, so how do I know the best version of myself? And that's where the ability to envision, visualize, and dream comes in. We all have the capacity to dream of a better world, dream of who we have become. And so if you can allow yourself to have no limitation whatsoever and just dream, imagine if money were not to be a challenge, what would you do? Who would you become? And dream of that, put that dream down and work towards that, and actually become that as you work towards becoming it. And that means letting go some habits that don't serve you, embracing habits that are in line with who you are becoming and who you want to become to be able to achieve what you want to achieve. And there's nothing in this life. Whatever we can put our minds and souls to, like somebody said, that whatever the mind of a man or a woman can conceive, it can definitely work towards achieving, and it can achieve. So, and difficulties will come along the way. I would say don't stop, don't settle, don't give up, keep pushing, keep pushing. One day, the light, the sun will rise again.
Tomorrow belongs to those people who prepare for it today. See you next week.